Vishen, thank you so much for being on. Why don't you start off, if you can, by telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Adam. Delighted to be here today and honored that you've asked me to join the CEO podcast. I'm Dr. Vishen Ramkisson. I'm a practicing NHS doctor. This is something that I've done for the last over 22 years now, and something that is very close to my heart, remaining connected to my local community as a practicing doctor. And I only work a few hundred meters down the road from where I live. So, in my local community, I'm instantly recognized whether I'm in the post office or in the supermarket or carrying out home visits as the local GP. And, people stop, wave, and say hello to me a number of times. So I quite enjoy being an intricate member of my local community. As I worked through different stages of my career as a doctor, I had the opportunity to visit many care homes, as a visiting GP, but also in my role as urgent care. And there's always been that drive and ambition from my side to look at which part of care delivery that I could have a lasting impact upon. With the complexities of the NHS, it's really difficult for an entrepreneur to look at something to get into and then look to make, incremental improvements to achieve better outcomes for patients and relatives. And care homes was that really interesting part of the wider NHS and social care that attracted me purely because, it allowed me to consider operating and starting a business, acquiring property, being able to have control of different elements of running a care home, both effectively, but also to a very high clinical standard. And I was always motivated to try to deliver a service that I would be proud of. And I always use the motto, if it's good enough for my parents, then it would be good enough for our residents at AgeCare.
And when it comes to this equation of affordability, we were talking about before we press record about, reaching care for, middle class citizens in the UK. Quality of care, affordability, getting this balance right, this equation right. How do you go about thinking about it?
So this is a challenge for all operators now,
Mm,
with rising staff costs, rising energy costs,
mm.
rising costs, inflation, and not being matched by fee rate rises. There's a lot of pressure on us to ensure that we remain viable without cutting corners. And that is something that uh, requires meticulous data and information and a real hawkish approach to all. And we do that by our motivated workforce. For me, our staff, ensuring that they're very well looked after, that they are remunerated and supported to their own challenges that the whole world and citizens of the United Kingdom are facing is essential to ensure that we retain our staff, we develop our staff, and they then through a motivated workforce, deliver high quality care, which in turn means we have better outcomes. And that's been our secret sauce. It's been something that takes time to achieve.
Mm.
Uh, and we've done a few things that we're really proud of to recognize and build up our workforce over the last 2 years. And we're hoping to sustain that in the future to come as well.
That retention, as you mentioned, is such a vital part of the equation, as we were talking about. And you mentioned a few things that you feel you've done that have made a difference. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I always try to, use empathy as a tool, putting myself in other people's shoes and trying to think what would make challenges in their own day-to-day roles. And one of the things that instantly stood out to me was the time away from work or rest and break times during shift periods. And one of the things we do at Age Care is to ensure that all of our staff, whether they're on short shifts, long shifts, overnight shifts, are given ample rest and break times, and these are all fully paid for. And that's something we're
Mm.
really proud of being able to offer our workforce. And that's come at a cost to the business, but
Mm.
has ensured that our staff have a lower sickness levels and ultimately far, far lower staff turnover rates as well. Our staff satisfaction ratings are very high. We've had multiple surveys done at different times, asking our staff for different questions, asking for their opinions on different questions, and it's largely come back very, very positive. I'm really proud that, I myself would struggle to work a 13-hour shift without rest, and to allow me to be effective, I need to have time to step away from my work so that I could approach it with that smile, with that warm and loving approach, which benefits our residents and our relatives as well.
Yeah, I see. And you talked about your low churn. I think the name on staff churn was around about 3%. Tell me, I mean, which is great. And obviously this is very important to you. So you talked about kind of these ample, paid breaks and ensuring that everyone your team is satisfied and kind of want and chooses to stay essentially, because we all know any care worker has many your care teams have many choices about where to go to work. So tell me a little bit more if you can on kind of what else you feel that you're particularly proud of in implementing, and you think if you were advising other care groups, other care homes on this vital aspects of recruitment and retention, what else you would consider them vital for them to think about?
A few things that we've brought in, taking my experience working at NHS England and NHS Digital in a corporate environment, as well as my role as a doctor, appraisal, revalidation, 360-degree peer feedback, are some of the things we've introduced at AgeCare in a more structured form. And that's really helped some of our key leaders identify their blind spots, areas that they could improve on, which has improved their relationships with their key reports, the managers at different sites, deputy managers, and the whole team within the care home. By having a more structured approach to appraisal and 360 feedback, we've been able to identify those staff members who are keen to grow, and we've invested in them through different learning and management training. In fact, in 2023, we had three manager positions become vacant across our organization, and we're able to fill those internally with deputy managers ready to move into manager positions. And thereafter, other people within our organizations having opportunities to grow internally, but also understand the steps and the things that they need to achieve to become successful in those roles. So, really working and investing in your workforce will pay ultimate dividends. And that's the best advice I feel I could give
Mm.
to another operator. The second
Mm.
thing, having an open door policy, as the CEO plus all my care team and leadership team, it's really important for staff to be able to approach us, to feel comfortable. When I go to a care home, I never wear a suit. I always try to dress down, dress comfortably, try to meet the staff. The first thing I do is walk the site, say hello to everybody before I go to the office, before I sit down with the manager and get into a structured meeting. And I think doing those things, turning up both with planned and unplanned and unexpected times, being more relaxed and open, sometimes taking my own children with me to the care home, means that my staff view me as somebody that they can openly come to. And
Mm.
those nuggets of that staff can tell you, they're worth their weight in gold compared to what a management consultant could tell you about improving your efficiency, because those staff members know about what works best at that care home for those residents. And if you ask them, more often than not, they have a lot of solutions. So, really putting our sort of ears to the ground, I think is hugely beneficial. So, I think as a leader, remaining culturally connected to your teams, being
Mm.
visible, very, very important.
Yeah, fabulous, great. And what's the proportion kind of any local authority private in your group generally?
So across aged care, we're about 65% private funded residents, about
Mm.
35% local authority. So we have a reasonable mix offering care provision to both private as well as local authority.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's something we think helps us maintain a good relationship with our local authority, at the
Mm.
same time positioning our homes in the, I'd like to think, upper mid market.
Yeah, yeah, I see. That's great. And on this question of affordability versus, a balance of affordability and quality of care, obviously the local authority rates come into play here. And we are now in what, January 2025. We've got April coming up. So that's an eternal balance, isn't it? That's a vital part of the equation. And tell me your kind of general thoughts about this, how you think about it, how you plan for it.
Things are really challenging in the economy. Therefore, local authorities have their challenges in terms of managing and balancing the books. That in turn has produced, many more challenges for us as care operators in being able to deliver a good quality service without cutting corners and maintaining that foreseeable future. At AgeCare, we have tried and worked really hard to be equitable and fair to our private fee-paying residents, not just raising fee rates at exorbitant level, but being
Mm.
open and honest with the relatives and residents themselves who self-fund as to why we need to put fee rates up, but also working with the local authority because many a time residents reach a point of fund depletion and they need to then move from being private self-funded to local authority. So for us, that balance is really important in maintaining a relationship with the local authority. So sometimes when they're in a bit of difficulty, they need a
Mm.
resident at a slightly lower rate. We take a view on that and try to be supportive to both sets of our clientele.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I see. And to be honest, with relationships with the local authorities, I imagine that, as a local GP, you have a good personal connection to the local authority commissioners. I mean, correct if I'm wrong. I think it's probably you're kind of a bedrock of the community, so to speak. So and I think as a GP, you kind of your whole reputation is like hinges here, right? You as a GP, like you're taking responsibility ultimately for 9 care homes in aged care alone. It's like you've got a reputation to enhance and respect. So that, in many senses, I guess, if I'm right or wrong, puts a degree of pressure, which is on you, which is a good thing, but also might, just mean that you have additional personal connection. Tell me if I'm right or wrong here on those who, are important for you to have a good relationship with as stakeholders.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct there. For me, I always consider this to be a double-edged sword, in a good way. I think I'm held to a slightly higher threshold in terms of the care delivery, and I spoke a lot about staff, but aged care is a clinically led organization. I myself, I'm a practicing GP. Our head of operations is a pharmacist. Head of care is a registered nurse, and our head of facilities comes with 20 years of NHS commissioning experience. So I took time to assemble the team, and we are very aligned with our values.
Hmm.
And looking after our residents is our prime objective. Working with commissioners, understanding why, we sometimes have to work together to meet resident needs and not necessarily look to move residents on when they become slightly more challenging has
Hmm.
worked well for us. And
Hmm.
that has strengthened our relationships with our local commissioners so that when they're in crisis, they pick up the phone and say, "Hey guys at HCare, can you help us?" And we try to help. There's a genuine will to support each other, even though we sit on different sides of the commissioner provider boundary.
Sure, sure. No, that's very interesting. And we're on this balance, as we say, between quality of care and affordability. We've got national insurance contributions rise in April, living wage, etc. All the pressures that which you're familiar with. So I'm curious to know how you're thinking about that, how you're planning it, kind of ahead of April.
No, the budget for us for 2025 has been a challenge. The changes announced by the Chancellor in October were unexpected. I think
Hmm.
especially the always expected national minimum wage to increase either in line or slightly above inflation, but the reduction in the threshold for national insurance contributions was one that has certainly made budget planning for 2025 more challenging.
Hmm.
My objective is to pay all of our staff across our entire organization a fair increase in their in their remuneration. Obviously, certain individuals who are below the new national minimum wage will get or possibly get a far greater increase in their pay than staff at the other end of the spectrum. But for us to ensure that we can be relevant is probably more important. So being open with all of my team members, Gail, as to why we perhaps can't afford 7 to 9% pay rises across the board is the way we're approaching this, alongside private fee rises as well as operational efficiency. And we're using technology more and more in our care homes, and especially
Mm,
from an operating perspective, has certainly helped us being able to identify where issues are arising or
mm,
costs are potentially out of line with our predictions. And that's
mm.
certainly been the recipe that we've employed at AgeCare
Right.
to ensure we're economically viable.
And on the subject of technology, are there any particular software or strategies that you are particularly fond of at the moment that you're exploring or have been using?
So absolutely, and I kind of divided into front facing care software,
Yeah.
and many providers out there, care planning, rostering, training platforms, LMS, and we've got back end software for accounting and direct debit, etc. What we've done at AgeCare is we started building our own middleware, which is operational operator specific software. And though we're a small organization with just 9 care homes, we have an in-house development team as well. And
Oh,
over the
really?
last 2 years, we've built about 15 applications on AgeCare's platform.
Wow.
And that's starting to bring a lot of efficiency, real-time accuracy in our invoice approval, expense approval, mileage tracking, being able to spot issues with live data. I came out of a senior team meeting this morning, and we were looking at data that was refreshed at 9 a.m. We've built all of this on Microsoft Power Platform, and whilst it's not a finished product yet, it's bringing a lot of live data so that we can make decisions in real time, as opposed to a month later, 3 months, or 9 months later, if that makes sense.
Very interesting, fascinating. Well, I think, to be honest, that's another podcast episode in its own right. So I see you coming back on again if you'd like to. That's great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. The retention and recruitment and retention is a massive thing. And thank you for sharing that. You mentioned it's your secret sauce, and I think that any care provider that can make a crack that and make a difference is going to go on the right track. And thank you for sharing everything else. I've just got one final question for you, Vishen, which is if anyone just wants to, if you have time to pick your brains, and how might they be able to get in contact with you? Would it be via LinkedIn, for example?
Absolutely. I'm always happy to share and collaborate. I think, as an industry of care leaders, we have a responsibility to share our knowledge across with other leaders. That's the only way we can improve. I certainly find it fascinating to listen to other care providers and always pick up little things that they're doing that I can bring back to my
Hmm.
company. So,
Hmm.
yeah, very active in social media. LinkedIn is the best place. And if anybody would like to, please feel free to contact or connect with me.
Great. Dr. Vishen Ramkisson, thank you so much for being on the Care CEO Success Stories podcast.
Thank you, Adam. That's been great.